I will first go across to Anat Bernstein-Reich. Anat, thank you very much for joining me once again on Global Lens. Very quickly, your thoughts on what President Biden has said. Frankly, he's taken many by surprise. For somebody who has offered unstinting support to Israel in this war so far, going so far as to even veto a UN Security Council resolution asking for a ceasefire as recently as last week, for the same US president to now say, I think Netanyahu has to change. This government in Israel is making it very difficult for him to move. They are starting to lose support by the indiscriminate bombing that is taking place in Gaza. Tell us what's happening here. It is clear to all of us, whether anyone admits it or not, that there is growing pressure on Israel. However, when your staunchest ally says something like this publicly, that changes a lot, doesn't it?
I'm not too sure. US, first, good evening, Nea. Sorry for talking directly. US is our greatest ally, and they show it time and again. Their support, even the veto in the Security Council this week, was definitely a sign of great support. And US haven't stopped saying that we need to destroy Hamas. I mean, nothing have changed in the overall perspective and in the overall objective. When President Biden talks, as you said, off the camera, there is nothing off the camera anymore. I mean, we know that everything that we say in public, whether there is a camera or there is a recording, is available to everyone. So I guess that Biden was sending a message, and I think that he doesn't need to send a message via New York. He talks very bluntly with Prime Minister Netanyahu. They have talks almost every week. So whatever he wants to tell Netanyahu, he tells him to the face. So I'm sure that those discussions were already been discussed between Netanyahu and Biden. And yes, there is pressure on Israel. We knew that there will be pressure as this ground operation progresses. Unfortunately, Israel needs to progress and finish the work that they started. If they stop in the middle, it will be a big cry for many years ahead, because we are very close to achieving substantial success. Not, I wouldn't say success, but achievements in fighting Hamas. And the more we come closer to the heads of the Hamas, the better to everyone, to Israelis, to the Gazan, to the Palestinians. When you spoke, Nea, about the disagreements on the day after, true, there are disagreements. I mean, it's a new situation that we need to solve. And even in the best families, members have disagreements. The US may have one opinion, the Israel have one opinion. And as in the past, they will sit, they will discuss, and eventually they will come to an agreement how the Gaza Strip should be managed, whether by the PA, which is a less preferred option, or some coalition of US, Egypt, Qatar, or whatever. So this remark of Biden is, of course, a message to Netanyahu, or even a message to Netanyahu government. As you rightly said, it's a very right-wing government that we are waiting for this war to end to see how this government will progress. And Netanyahu knows exactly what Biden is thinking. And definitely it didn't come as a surprise to him.
All right, Netanyahu would not be surprised by this, is what you're saying. You know, we will definitely talk about the day after Hamas scenario, which also seems to have become a point of friction between the two allies. But for now, I want to focus on Biden saying Israel is losing support, because at least for the rest of us, this is the first time that he has said this publicly. Behind closed doors, he may have said it many times to Prime Minister Netanyahu. let me go across to Professor Uriel Abuloof at this point. Professor Abuloof, Anand is right in saying that President Biden has been talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu on a regular basis, and there is no doubt that he would have spoken his mind to him on every occasion. There have been in the recent past repeated reminders about how Israel is not doing enough to minimize civilian casualties. Those reminders have come on a regular basis from Antony Blinken quite publicly. But this is no longer confined to a conversation between the two leaders behind closed doors or behind closed curtains. This is now public, which is why it is making global headlines. For President Biden to say Netanyahu needs to change or he risks losing global support, the far-right government is making it very difficult for him to move. He goes as far as to say there needs to be a change to the Israeli government itself. And Israel is fast losing the support of the world because of the rising civilian deaths. So my point is, doesn't this change the dynamic? When your strongest ally says Israel is going too far.
It certainly changes the dynamic. Look, the US has the veto power in the Security Council. And the US has been using its veto power in the Security Council again and again in favor of Israel. If the US stops doing that, Israel will be in a huge problem. Netanyahu is aware of that, his government is aware of that. But unfortunately, for someone like Netanyahu and for his government, but let's focus on Netanyahu, he couldn't care less. As I mentioned several times in our interviews, I think Netanyahu cares about nothing but his own personal power. And as far as Netanyahu is concerned, it is actually quite good to have some sort of rift with the US. Now he can portray himself as if he is defending Israel's national interest vis-a-vis the US. And this has been the sort of discourse that you see from Netanyahu, from his aides. Netanyahu from day one, after October 7, has been in an ongoing political campaign, the way that he has been, even before the October 7 massacre. This is what Netanyahu is good at. Netanyahu is good at fear-mongering. Netanyahu is good at divide and rule. And Biden knows it very well. Now, Biden is in a bit of a complicated situation here because Biden would like to help Israel, and not just for sentimental and moral value, because of the great strategic importance, not just of Israel, but of the region itself and for the US position in the region and worldwide. So it is, I think, quite critical in the perspective of Biden that Israel will effectively defeat Hamas. But Biden demands something that seems very straightforward and commonsensical, which is that there will be a substantial plan for the day after Hamas. Now, of course, for Netanyahu, the only important thing is to galvanize the Israeli public behind himself, behind Netanyahu. And so to fearmonger as the possibility of a Palestinian Authority returning to Gaza. Netanyahu doesn't have any other solution. He has no solution. But he has one thing in his mind, and this is how he can create enough fear among Israelis and to position himself, to position Netanyahu himself as the only guardian of Israel's security. Netanyahu has failed at the task again and again and again, and so miserably on October 7th. But he keeps on trying to do that, and of course he has the coalition, right? He has 64 members of coalition. They know very well what is the situation in the public opinion polls, in the ongoing surveys. Most Israelis support Biden. Most Israelis overwhelmingly would just like to see Netanyahu go.
Exactly.
That would be the slogan, I think, of about 2/3 of Israel. Just go, live, whenever you can, and as soon as possible. Just go. And I think Biden would like to see the same. The question is, how do you square that circle? Because Netanyahu is now the prime minister. He has a very firm coalition, all interested in their own power, and of course, some of them to perpetuate their zealous, ultra right-wing ideology in the West Bank and possibly in the future of Gaza. It's quite a predicament for Biden.
It is quite a predicament for Biden because along with Israel, I think it would be safe to say that the United States is also increasingly facing the heat now from the international community. Let's not forget Biden has to face an election next year, and it could be a very tough election against Donald Trump. But that apart, it's interesting, your perspective on this entire issue. you believe that Netanyahu cares about nothing but his own power. But then again, I really wonder how Netanyahu is going to hold on to power once this war is over. Going by the mood on the ground in Israel, it's going to be virtually impossible for Netanyahu to do that. But what I find very interesting is when you say that this public rift between the US and Israel may actually work to Netanyahu's advantage.